The key to understanding the book of Revelation is understanding the Egyptian Exodus story. The Pharaoh is going to be a type and shadow of the future Antichrist. And just as Pharaoh persecuted God's children, the Antichrist will persecute and make war against the saints in the final tribulation. But God doesn't put up with his children being persecuted for long. Eventually he pours out wrath. And you'll notice there's very similar judgments in the book of Revelation as there were in the book of Exodus. We'll take a look at a few of them. So the first trumpet has hail with fire, and the seventh plague on Egypt also had hail with fire. The third trumpet, the rivers turned to blood, and the first plague of Egypt had the Nile turning to blood. In the fourth trumpet, there's darkness, and in the ninth plague of Egypt, there's darkness. In the fifth trumpet, there's demonic locust, and in the eighth plague of Egypt, there were natural locusts. The sixth trumpet had widespread death, and the 10th plague of Egypt had widespread death. We also noticed that in the first, second, and third trumpets, a third of the trees and grass were burnt up, a third of the living creatures in the sea die, and many people die from the wormwood waters. And in the fifth plague of Egypt, there was a livestock disease. So all of these judgments are not meant to hurt God's children. They are specifically meant to attack the resources of the Antichrist empire and all of his followers. Now this brings us to the question of whether or not these judgments are literal. Many preterist and liberal scholars will tend to say that this is all symbol and metaphor, and they will also say that all of these things have already happened in the past. But if you're taking these judgments to be literal, it is very clear that all of the trumpets, bowls, and seals have not already been fulfilled. In the end times, the church will be a lot like Moses. We will actually be praying for God's judgment to be poured out, and we see in the fifth seal, the martyrs are asking God to pour out his wrath. And God is utilizing the prayers of the saints as a part of his judgment plan. In the end times, God's judgments are not against his children, but for his children. God bless you guys.